My brothers and sisters, let me ask you something honestly. Why does your heart feel calm when people are close and restless when they are gone? Why does one message give you peace and one silence disturb your sleep? If your happiness rises and falls with people, then people are sitting in a place they were never meant to occupy. And as long as your heart depends on creation, it will never feel safe. My brothers and sisters, Allah did not design human beings to be your source of emotional survival. This is where many hearts quietly break, not because of cruelty, but because of misunderstanding. People were created to walk with you, not to hold you up. They were created to share moments, not to carry the weight of your peace. They were created to support you at times, not to stabilize your entire emotional world. Yet many of us live as if people are pillars instead of companions. We lean on them for reassurance. We wait for them to make us feel valuable. We look to them to calm our fears, to validate our worth, to remind us that we matter. And when they fail to do that consistently, we feel wounded. But the wound is not caused by their weakness. It is caused by our expectation. When you place your peace, your confidence, and your sense of worth into another person's hands, you are asking them to do a job they were never created to do. You are asking something fragile to behave like something divine. That is why they fail you. That is why they disappoint you. That is why they sometimes leave. Not always because they are bad people. Not always because they intended harm, but because they are human. Human beings get tired. Human beings change. Human beings face their own fears, their own struggles, their own limitations. They cannot consistently show up as your emotional anchor because they themselves need anchoring. This is why Allah introduces Himself to us as As-Samad, the one everyone depends on, while He depends on no one. The one who does not weaken, the one who does not drift, the one whose presence does not fluctuate with mood, energy, or circumstances. No human being carries that title. So when your heart expects from people what only Allah can provide, your heart will always feel unsafe. It will feel anxious when people are distant. It will feel insecure when attention fades. It will feel empty when reassurance is delayed. And you will mistake that emptiness for love. Many people say, I just need them, without realizing what they are really saying. They are saying, my emotional stability depends on you. And that is too heavy a burden to place on another soul. Islam does not teach us to detach from people. It teaches us to detach our dependence from them. There is a difference between companionship and emotional outsourcing. There is a difference between loving someone and building your sense of safety inside them. When your heart relies on people, every change they go through becomes a threat to your peace. If they are busy, you feel neglected. If they are quiet, you feel rejected. If they are distant, you feel abandoned. But the truth is, they are not abandoning you. They are simply living their human limitations. Allah, out of mercy, allows these disappointments to happen so that your heart can learn a deeper lesson. Allah wants to teach you that your peace was never meant to sit in someone else's hands. This is why sometimes relationships feel heavy. This is why closeness turns into anxiety. This is why love becomes fear, because the heart is trying to drink from a cup that was never meant to hold that much water. When Allah is removed from the center of emotional reliance, people are forced into a position they cannot survive. And when they collapse under that weight, we accuse them of changing, betraying, or failing us. But the failure happened earlier when the heart chose the wrong foundation. My brothers and sisters, when your confidence comes from Allah, people can compliment you without owning you. When your peace comes from Allah, people can leave without destroying you. When your worth comes from Allah, people can disagree with you without shaking you. This is what emotional safety looks like in Islam. You still love people. You still care deeply. You still value connection. But your heart no longer panics at loss because it is not built on something temporary. Allah does not ask you to stop loving people. He asks you to stop replacing Him with them. And when your heart finally rests where it was always meant to rest, something changes quietly inside you. You become calmer, you become lighter, you become less reactive. Because your heart is no longer begging the creation for what only the Creator can give. And that is where true peace begins. My brothers and sisters, this is a truth many hearts resist because it challenges how they have been living for years. Needing people is not love. It is attachment dressed up as emotion. Love in Islam is dignified. It is calm. It is principled. It gives without enslaving the heart. Attachment, on the other hand, is anxious. It clings. It fears loss more than it values righteousness. It turns relationships into lifelines instead of connections. Many people say, I love them, but what they really mean is, I feel safe because they are here. And the moment that safety feels threatened, love turns into panic. This is where suffering begins. Love allows people to come and go while your faith remains stable. Attachment collapses the moment people change. When you are attached, silence feels like rejection. Distance feels like abandonment. Independence feels like betrayal. But none of these reactions come from love. They come from fear. Attachment ties your emotional stability to something you do not control. And anything you do not control will eventually disappoint you. People age, people grow tired, people get distracted, people face trials you may never see. And when your happiness depends on their consistency, every test they face becomes a test for your heart as well. This is why attachment exhausts relationships. It places pressure on people to perform emotionally at a level they cannot maintain. It silently demands constant reassurance, constant presence, constant validation. And people feel it. They may not say it, but they feel the weight. They feel responsible for your mood. They feel guilty when they are unavailable. They feel trapped when your happiness depends on them. This is why attachment eventually pushes people away, even when love was present at the beginning. Islam does not teach us to remove emotion from relationships. It teaches us to remove desperation. The Prophet ﷺ loved deeply, but his heart was never owned by people. His reliance was on Allah. His stability was in Allah. His peace was with Allah. That is why loss did not break him. That is why betrayal did not harden him. That is why loneliness did not weaken him. Attachment is dangerous because it replaces trust in Allah with emotional dependency on creation. When you are attached, you begin to fear loss more than disobedience. You tolerate disrespect because you fear being alone. You compromise your values because you fear abandonment. You silence your needs because you fear distance. This is not love. This is survival behavior. And Allah does not want His servants surviving emotionally by clinging to people. He wants them standing firmly with Him. Real love allows space. Real love allows growth. Real love does not panic when tested. Attachment panics because it has no anchor. This is why some people feel intense emotions but little peace. They feel deeply, but they are constantly anxious. They love, but they are always afraid. Because attachment feels intense, people mistake it for depth. But intensity is not depth. Stability is. Allah wants your heart to be stable. When your heart is anchored in Allah, relationships become lighter. You stop monitoring tone. You stop counting responses. You stop interpreting silence as danger. You allow people to be human. And something important happens then. You stop exhausting yourself and others. When you stop needing people to be okay, you stop demanding emotional labor they never agreed to provide. You stop turning relationships into emotional negotiations. You stop making people responsible for your inner state. This does not make you cold. It makes you balanced. You still love. You still care. But you no longer bleed when people step back. And this is the irony many people do not expect. When attachment leaves, love becomes healthier. People feel safer around you. They feel free, not burdened. They feel valued, not used. Because love that does not need to survive feels peaceful. My brothers and sisters, attachment feels comforting at first, but it always ends in pain. Love rooted in Allah feels calm even during loss. So ask yourself honestly, are you loving people? Or are you using them to feel secure? Because the heart that depends on people will always be anxious. But the heart that depends on Allah can love without fear. And that is the kind of heart Islam calls us to build. My brothers and sisters, when someone leaves your life and your entire world collapses, it feels like loss. But in reality, it is exposure. Not exposure of your weakness, but exposure of where your heart was resting. If a human being walks away and your peace disappears with them, then your peace was never yours to begin with. It was borrowed. And borrowed peace is always temporary. Allah sometimes allows people to leave not to punish you, but to teach you something about yourself. Because as long as they stay, the heart never questions its dependence. Comfort hides imbalance. When everything feels stable, we assume everything is correct. But stability built on the wrong foundation still collapses. When people leave, they do not create the pain. They reveal it. They reveal that your heart was leaning on something fragile. They reveal that your sense of safety was tied to someone who could change. They reveal that your emotional security was outsourced. This is why the pain feels so deep. You are not just grieving a person. You are grieving the illusion that they were holding you together. Allah, out of mercy, breaks this illusion. He does not always remove people suddenly. Sometimes He creates distance. Sometimes He allows silence. Sometimes He allows misunderstanding. Sometimes He allows separation. And in that space, your heart is forced to face a truth it avoided for years. You realize how much of your peace depended on their presence. How much of your confidence depended on their approval. How much of your calm depended on their consistency. This realization hurts, but it heals. Because Allah does not want your heart enslaved to creation. Many people say, why did Allah allow them to leave if it hurts so much? The answer is simple and uncomfortable. Because the pain is temporary, but misplaced dependence destroys you slowly for a lifetime. Allah sees what you cannot see. He sees the future of that attachment. He sees the anxiety it would produce. He sees the compromises it would force you into. He sees how it would weaken your trust in Him. So He intervenes, not harshly, not angrily, but firmly. And when people leave, something important happens if you allow it. You stop pretending you were fine. You stop distracting yourself with their presence. You stop numbing your heart with companionship. And you finally sit with yourself. This is where growth begins, even though it feels like loss. If you respond correctly, separation becomes purification. If you respond incorrectly, separation becomes resentment. Many hearts choose resentment. They blame the person. They blame destiny. They blame time. But the mature heart asks a harder question. Why was my peace so vulnerable? This question changes everything. Because once you see the truth, you can correct it. Allah never removes something essential without replacing it with something stronger. But the replacement does not come from people. It comes from Him. When people leave and you turn back to Allah, something shifts quietly inside you. Your heart begins to rebuild itself on a stable foundation. Your reliance starts to realign. Your expectations become healthier. You learn to breathe without reassurance. You learn to exist without validation. You learn to stand without emotional crutches. This is not loneliness. This is maturity. The heart that survives loss with faith becomes stronger than the heart that was never tested. My brothers and sisters, people leaving your life does not mean you were unlovable. It does not mean you were replaceable. It does not mean you were insignificant. Often it means Allah is repositioning your heart. He is removing what distracted it. He is loosening what tied it. He is teaching it where safety truly lies. And when your heart finally understands this lesson, something powerful happens. You stop begging people to stay. You stop fearing abandonment. You stop measuring your worth by who remains. Because your heart is no longer placed where people can drop it. And that is when loss stops destroying you and starts refining you. That is when leaving becomes a lesson, not a wound. And that is when your heart begins to return to where it always belonged. My brothers and sisters, real happiness does not begin when people stay. It begins when your heart is anchored. As long as your peace depends on people's behavior, your happiness will remain unstable. You will feel calm when they are kind. You will feel anxious when they are distant. You will feel broken when they leave. This is not happiness. This is emotional dependence. Allah never promised us a life where people would always remain consistent. But He did promise that whoever relies on Him will never be abandoned. When your heart returns to Allah, something changes quietly but deeply. Your peace stops being reactive. Your emotions stop swinging with circumstances. Your worth stops being negotiated in relationships. You begin to feel grounded. This grounding comes when your connection with Allah becomes your primary source of reassurance. Your salah becomes your place of calm, not just ritual. Your dua becomes your refuge, not a last resort. Your trust in Allah becomes lived, not theoretical. At that point, people no longer decide how you feel about yourself. If someone praises you, you are grateful but not inflated. If someone criticizes you, you reflect but do not collapse. If someone leaves, you grieve but you remain standing. This is emotional stability with faith at its center. Many people misunderstand this and think it means becoming distant or cold. It does not. You still love people. You still care deeply. You still form bonds. But your heart is no longer begging for safety from creation. When Allah becomes the anchor of your heart, relationships stop feeling like survival. They start feeling like companionship. You stop chasing attention. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop fearing silence because your heart already feels held. This is why Allah repeatedly calls Himself Al-Wakil, the disposer of affairs. Not because life will be easy, but because your heart will not be alone in carrying it. When your heart returns to Allah, you begin to expect less from people and more from your Lord. And ironically, this does not make you bitter, it makes you peaceful. Your standards rise, but your anxiety falls. You no longer tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. You no longer stay in places that drain your iman just to feel included. You no longer compromise your values to keep people close. Because closeness is no longer your source of safety. Allah becomes enough. And when Allah is enough, people become a blessing instead of a necessity. You enjoy their presence without clinging to it. You appreciate their kindness without fearing its end. You accept their flaws without resenting them. This is the freedom Allah wants for your heart. My brothers and sisters, the heart was created to depend on something eternal. When it depends on something temporary, it suffers. When it returns to Allah, it rests. And that is the difference between momentary happiness and lasting peace. One fades with people, the other remains with Allah. And the heart that learns this lesson stops chasing happiness and starts living it. My brothers and sisters, there is a truth here that many people do not want to hear because it exposes their fear. The more you need people, the more you quietly push them away. Needing someone emotionally creates pressure even if you never say it out loud. It turns love into responsibility. It turns companionship into obligation. When your happiness depends on another person, you make them responsible for your inner world. And no human being can carry that role without eventually feeling exhausted. They may care about you, they may love you, but they can feel the weight. They feel it when your mood shifts with their availability. They feel it when your peace depends on their reassurance. They feel it when silence from them creates anxiety in you. And slowly, even without intention, they begin to pull back. Not because they hate you, not because they want to hurt you, but because emotional pressure suffocates connection. Islam teaches balance in all things, including relationships. When your heart is stable with Allah, relationships become lighter. People feel safe around you because they are not being asked to rescue you emotionally. You no longer look to them to fix your sadness. You no longer expect them to fill your emptiness. You no longer make them responsible for your peace. And this changes everything. People sense when they are appreciated versus when they are needed. Appreciation feels warm. Need feels heavy. When you appreciate people, you enjoy their presence without demanding it. When you need people, you panic at their absence. This panic communicates insecurity, even if your words sound calm. But when Allah is the foundation of your emotional stability, your presence becomes peaceful. You bring calm into relationships instead of anxiety. You listen without urgency. You speak without desperation. You give without expecting emotional repayment. This is why people often stay longer around those who are emotionally independent. Not because they are distant, but because they are balanced. They allow space. They respect boundaries. They do not cling. And human beings need space to breathe. There is another uncomfortable truth here. When you stop needing people, you also stop tolerating unhealthy behavior. You stop begging for time. You stop accepting disrespect. You stop chasing those who show you through actions that they are not invested. This clarity strengthens relationships that are sincere and removes those that are not. So even if some people leave when you stop needing them, that loss is not failure. It is filtration. Those who stay, stay because they choose to, not because they feel emotionally trapped. My brothers and sisters, Allah does not want your relationships to be built on fear of loss. He wants them built on mutual respect and shared values. When you stop needing people to feel okay, you show up as a complete person. And complete people build healthier bonds. People are drawn to calm. They are drawn to stability. They are drawn to those whose hearts are not constantly demanding. And even when relationships end, they end without destroying you. Because your happiness was never sitting in their hands. It was always protected by Allah. And that is why emotional independence does not make you lonely. It makes you free. Free to love without fear. Free to connect without attachment. Free to let go without breaking. And this is the kind of freedom that allows relationships to survive without suffocating them. That is why people stay longer when you stop needing them. My brothers and sisters, many people fear loneliness more than they fear misguidance. They would rather stay surrounded by people than sit alone with their own thoughts. But isolation is not always punishment. Sometimes it is medicine. Allah, in His wisdom, sometimes removes people from your life not to harm you, but to quiet the noise around your heart. Because as long as the noise is loud, the heart cannot hear guidance. When you are constantly surrounded by people, distractions multiply. You borrow emotions, you absorb opinions, you mirror expectations. And slowly, without realizing it, you lose clarity about who you are and where your heart truly stands. Isolation forces honesty. In solitude, there is no audience to perform for, no approval to chase, no reactions to manage. And this is uncomfortable at first. Your mind becomes louder. Unprocessed pain rises. Fears you avoided demand attention. This is why many people mistake solitude for suffering. But the discomfort is not harm, it is exposure. Allah brings you into isolation so that what was buried can surface and be healed. When distractions are removed, the heart begins to recalibrate. You start noticing how dependent you were on people's presence. How much of your identity was shaped by relationships. How often you avoided yourself by staying busy with others. This realization can feel heavy, but it is necessary because Allah cannot rebuild a heart that refuses to be examined. Isolation teaches you to sit with yourself without collapsing. It teaches you that your heart can survive silence. It teaches you that your worth does not disappear when no one is watching. And slowly, something shifts. Solitude stops feeling like abandonment and starts feeling like protection. You realize Allah did not remove people to leave you empty. He removed them to make room. Room for reflection. Room for growth. Room for a deeper relationship with Him. This is where salah becomes more sincere, not rushed. Not habitual, but sought after. This is where dua becomes honest, not polished, not rehearsed, but real. In isolation, you stop pretending to be strong. You become strong. Many of the strongest believers were shaped in solitude, not because they loved being alone, but because Allah refined them away from distraction. My brothers and sisters, do not rush to escape loneliness. Do not immediately replace people who left. Sometimes Allah wants you alone so that you stop reaching for creation and start reaching for Him. And when this lesson is learned, something beautiful happens. You return to people differently. You are no longer desperate for company. You are selective. You are calm. You are grounded. You no longer fear silence. You no longer chase presence. You no longer measure your worth by attention. Isolation has done its work. It has healed what noise was hiding. And when Allah sends people back into your life after this season, they enter a heart that is no longer fragile, a heart that is full without them, a heart that can love without needing, a heart that trusts Allah more than it fears being alone. That is why isolation, when guided by faith, does not break you, it rebuilds you. And the heart that emerges from it is stronger, calmer, and closer to Allah than it has ever been. My brothers and sisters, happiness does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself through people staying, messages coming, or attention increasing. Happiness arrives when the heart finally stops begging. For many people, life is a constant emotional negotiation. They negotiate for time. They negotiate for affection. They negotiate for reassurance. And this constant negotiating exhausts the heart. When you stop needing people, something inside you relaxes. Your chest feels lighter. Your thoughts slow down. Your emotions stop swinging between hope and fear. This does not happen because you become cold. It happens because you become complete. Needing people creates inattention. It keeps the heart alert, scanning for signs of loss, rejection, or distance. But when your dependence is placed on Allah, the heart finally feels safe. This safety is what happiness is built on. Happiness is not excitement. It is not pleasure. It is not constant joy. Happiness is the absence of fear, the fear of abandonment, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being alone. When you stop needing people, these fears begin to dissolve. You no longer check your worth through others. You no longer read meaning into silence. You no longer feel threatened by distance. You still value people. You still enjoy connection, but your identity is no longer wrapped around their presence. This is emotional freedom, and with freedom comes clarity. You begin to choose people instead of clinging to them. You begin to give without expecting emotional return. You begin to walk away from what harms your iman without panic. Happiness grows in this clarity because your heart is no longer divided between Allah and creation. When Allah becomes enough, people become optional blessings. You are grateful when they stay. You are peaceful when they leave. This is not emotional numbness. This is emotional maturity. Many people chase happiness through relationships, thinking closeness will heal them. But closeness without inner stability only delays pain. True happiness comes when you are okay before people arrive and still okay after they leave. And this is why the happiest people are often the calmest. They do not chase. They do not cling. They do not beg. They trust. They trust that Allah knows what they need better than they do. They trust that what leaves was never meant to stay. They trust that what stays will not be lost. This trust creates peace, and peace is the deepest form of happiness. My brothers and sisters, when you stop needing people, you stop living in fear. When you stop living in fear, you start living in contentment. You wake up lighter. You pray more sincerely. You move through life without emotional weight because your heart is no longer scattered across people. It has returned to one place. And when the heart is whole, happiness is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you carry. May Allah grant us hearts that depend on Him alone, love without attachment, and happiness that does not disappear when people change. That is real happiness. And my brothers and sisters, when happiness comes from this place, it no longer needs constant protection. You are not guarding it. You are not defending it. You are not afraid someone will take it away because it is no longer coming from people. When happiness comes from Allah, it becomes steady, not dramatic, not emotional, but reliable. Your days may still have hardship. Your nights may still carry worry, but your heart remains intact. This is the difference between happiness built on circumstances and happiness built on certainty. When you stop needing people, you stop living on emotional highs and lows. You stop feeling elevated when attention is given and crushed when it is withdrawn. You stop measuring your day by who showed up and who did not. Instead, your happiness becomes internal, quiet, grounded. You learn how to be content even in ordinary moments. You learn how to sit in silence without feeling empty. You learn how to walk alone without feeling abandoned. This is not loneliness. This is sufficiency. And sufficiency is one of the greatest gifts Allah gives to a heart. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that true richness is not having many possessions, but being content in the heart. And contentment cannot exist in a heart that is dependent on people, because people are unpredictable. They love today and change tomorrow. They promise and forget. They come close and then step away. If your happiness follows their movement, you will never rest. But when your heart learns that Allah is enough, people lose the power to disturb your inner state. You stop overthinking conversations. You stop replaying moments in your mind. You stop wondering why someone changed. Not because you do not care, but because you trust Allah's wisdom more than your fears. And this trust brings dignity. You no longer chase what walks away. You no longer beg for attention. You no longer stay where your iman is weakened just to feel included. Because you have discovered something greater than companionship. You have discovered peace. Peace does not depend on full rooms. Peace does not require constant connection. Peace does not panic in silence. Peace comes from knowing that Allah sees you even when people forget you. That Allah values you even when people overlook you. That Allah stays even when people leave. This knowledge settles the heart. And when the heart is settled, happiness follows naturally. Not loud happiness, not temporary happiness, but a deep sense of okayness with life as it is. You stop resisting reality. You stop fighting change. You stop clinging to what Allah is removing, because you trust that Allah does not take without giving and does not remove without replacing. My brothers and sisters, when you stop needing people, you stop handing them control over your inner world. You take that control back and place it where it belongs, with Allah. And from that place, you love more sincerely, give more freely, and live more peacefully. This is not detachment from people. This is attachment to Allah. And attachment to Allah is the only attachment that never breaks the heart. That is why when you stop needing people, you do not become empty, you become free. And in that freedom, happiness finally finds you. This kind of happiness changes how you move through the world. You become slower in reaction and stronger in response. You listen more and chase less. You observe before you attach, because your heart is no longer hungry. A hungry heart rushes into people. It ignores red flags. It accepts crumbs and calls it care. It tolerates imbalance because it fears being alone. But a fulfilled heart is patient. It waits. It chooses. It walks away without hatred and stays without fear. This is why emotional independence is not arrogance. It is self-respect guided by faith. When you stop needing people, you stop confusing attention with affection. You stop mistaking familiarity for loyalty. You stop interpreting presence as commitment. Your standards quietly rise, not because you think you are better than others, but because you know your heart is valuable. And when your heart is valuable, you protect it. You no longer allow people to come close without intention. You no longer share yourself with those who cannot handle responsibility. You no longer bleed emotionally just to keep connections alive. This is maturity. Many people think happiness comes from being surrounded. But the truth is, happiness comes from being centered. Centered in your faith, centered in your values, centered in your relationship with Allah. From this center, relationships no longer define you. They complement you. You enjoy company, but you are not shaken by solitude. You appreciate love, but you are not destroyed by loss. You accept change because your foundation does not change. And this is where life becomes lighter. You wake up without emotional heaviness. You go to sleep without unresolved fear. You trust that whatever tomorrow brings, Allah will carry you through it. This trust is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It simply steadies the heart. My brothers and sisters, happiness is not a destination you reach with people. It is a state you build within yourself through reliance on Allah. And when you build it correctly, nothing and no one can take it from you, because it was never theirs to give. So let people come, let people go, let seasons change. Your heart remains with Allah. And that is why when you stop needing people, happiness is no longer something you search for. It becomes something you live every day. My brothers and sisters, happiness is not found in who stays. It is found in where your heart rests. Rest it with Allah, and no change in people will ever break you again. May Allah grant us hearts that depend on Him alone and peace that does not shake when people change.